Thank you, Cahirla, and thank you, Minister. I first of all want to acknowledge that the Minister for Defence, his office contacted me a number of times last night. He conveyed that he would have liked to have been here today for the debate, but there's a number of commitments that he wasn't able to reschedule. So I wanted to say that he tried. Unfortunately, the commencement couldn't be rescheduled today to facilitate him, but in fairness to him, I do need to say that he did convey concern around the issue. A few years ago, I met with John Gorman. He was a 17-year-old lad who was caught up in that siege all of those years ago. A man of the highest integrity who has for many, many years, along with others, campaigned for recognition of what they have done. He was along with a former member of the Defence Forces, Ewan Carroll, from Donegal when he met me that day. And I have to say, from meeting those two men of integrity, I could see that a serious injustice was done. But it wasn't until I watched the movie dramatisation of what had happened that it truly sunk in. Here you had a group of over 150 Irish soldiers who had heroically done their duty to the United Nations, to international peacekeeping, had probably participated in one of the most remarkable military feats in the history of military forces. Not one of them lost their lives. And sadly, in conflict on the other side, many did, of the mercenaries who were attacking them. You would have thought they would have come home to a hero's welcome after a month in imprisonment. They were betrayed. They were utterly betrayed by the powers that be, by those in this state caught up in this Cold War sort of piggy in the middle situation. But worse than being betrayed, they were allowed to be presented as cowards for all of those years. They had to suffer that indignity. Ewan Carroll, the former member of the Defence Forces from Donegal, tells me that he billeted with many of those men and they never talked about Jadotville. Can you imagine that? To be involved in such a heroic event over 6 days, to hold the ground on behalf of the international community for 6 days, and to not feel you're able to talk about that. Such was the betrayal of those men. Minister, giving scrolls, with all due respect, is not going to cut it. I strongly, passionately believe that there needs to be, in Aras Nuachtaráin, a presentation of military medals of gallantry to all of the men who served that day. I also want to say this on the record. In the last week, Minister, 2 of those heroic men who served for us and for the United Nations during those days of that siege have lost their lives, have passed away after many years. Sergeant John Butch McManus passed away in the last week. And today, as we speak right now, Bill Reedy is being buried in Mullingar. And gathered at that funeral will be all his old comrades that are still alive from Jadotville. But as the years go on, Minister, those numbers grow smaller and smaller. So I passionately urge you, and I appreciate the Minister, Paul Keogh, contacting me, and I know he shares my sense of determination on this issue, that we need to do more than just hand out scrolls. Such was the scale of the betrayal. These men, the honour that they gave to the Irish people for their heroism over those days, to come home to be betrayed for all of those years, the only way that can be turned around is being taken to Aras Nuachtaráin, the surviving members and the members of those who are deceased, the members of their family for those who are deceased, to be gathered in Aras Nuachtaráin and to have the medals for military gallantry presented to all present. That is the appropriate way. It will be a huge signal to reverse the injustice that they have endured.
Thank you. And I'd like to thank Senator Mac Lochlainn for raising this matter and for his passionate comments on behalf of the survivors and the families of the deceased. As the Senator pointed out, Minister Keogh wanted to be here to personally take this debate, but prior commitments precluded that, and unfortunately, despite the agreement of the Senator and the Minister, it was not possible to have the debate rescheduled. I would like to reassure the House that the Government is fully aware of the bravery and heroism of the men of the A Company 35th Infantry Battalion who took part in the siege at Jadotville in September 1961. It is against this background that I wish to address the considerations and legislative restrictions around the award of medals, and I will proceed to outline the actions that have been taken so far by this Government and previous administrations to recognise and honour these men. The issue of the award of medals to A Company was comprehensively addressed in 1965. A properly constituted board considered the various cases presented and made a decision that no medals would be awarded. The Chief of Staff of the day considered the decision of the board and was satisfied with the findings. Subsequently, the question was raised again in a letter to the then Chief, who forwarded the letter to the Medals Board. The board indicated that the issues raised had received due consideration and that the board was not prepared to alter its findings. The legal position under Defence Forces regulations is that there is no provision in the regulations for the Minister to make an award of a military medal for gallantry other than on the recommendation of a military board appointed by the Chief of Staff, nor is there any mechanism for a case to be referred back to a military board for official examination. In 2004, the then Minister for Defence initiated a re-examination of the Jadotville case on foot of a request from a retired Army officer. The report that resulted was prepared by a board of military officers who fully exonerated the actions of A Company and recommended that the events of Jadotville and the contribution of the 35th Battalion be given appropriate recognition. Subsequently, in November 2005, a commemorative stone to honour their actions was unveiled at Costume Barracks Athlone, attended by members of the family of the company, their families and the families of the deceased members of the unit. A bronze plaque was affixed to the stone with an inscription recognising their valiant actions. In November 2006, there was a presentation of scrolls to the members of the A Company by the then Minister of State in recognition of their bravery. In February 2007, portraits of Lieutenant Colonel McNamee, 35th Battalion Commander, and Commandant Pat Quinlan, a Company Commander A Company, were unveiled at the Military College and now hang in the Congo Room in the United Nations Training College in the Training School in the Curragh. In September 2016, a nominal roll of A Company, printed in copper, was affixed to the monument in Costume Barracks and was unveiled as part of the 50th anniversary of the Jadotville affair. Most recently, Minister Keogh decided to issue a unit citation and insignia to honour their collective actions and bravery of the men of A Company 35th Infantry Battalion. On the 17th of September 2016, the occasion of the 55th anniversary of the Siege of Jadotville, a special ceremony was held in Costume Barracks Athlone to present the unit citation to the company in recognition of their collective bravery, courage and professional performance during the Siege of Jadotville, whilst cut off from support and reinforcements. During the ceremony, a copy of the citation was presented to each member of the unit or to their next of kin in the case of deceased members. In addition, and to reflect the fact that the unit had received a citation, a special insignia has been commissioned which will be worn by each member of the A Company. A unit citation is used by a number of militaries as a way of recognising the collective actions and outstanding service of personnel attached to a particular military unit. This was the first time that such a unit citation was awarded within the Defence Forces. The decision of the Minister provides a formal recognition of the collective bravery and actions of the men of A Company 35th Infantry Battalion.
Thank you. Briefly, Senator.
Yeah, the painting of Command Quinlan that hangs in the officer mess that you referred to there apparently refers to the misfortune that took place in Jadotville. You refer to the decision back in 1965. No shock to me. The true cowards in terms of Jadotville were those in political and some in the military establishment that allowed their names to be besmirched, and the damage, the profound damage. Can you imagine that you were involved as a young man in that situation of heroism, defending the honour of the Irish people, involved in peacekeeping in the United Nations, to be treated like that for years, that you felt you couldn't even talk about Jadotville, the Jadotville Jacks they were labelled. And with all due respects, I do not believe that scrolls or anything like that are appropriate to reverse the betrayal that those men have faced. And I urge Minister Keogh, who I acknowledge, he's watched the Siege of Jadotville. We briefly discussed this last week. and more Irish people of the generations that never heard of Jadotville, including myself. I'd never heard of Jadotville until I met with John Gorman and Ewan Carroll. But I tell you, I know all about it now, and many more Irish people are deeply, profoundly angry at what they have learned and the betrayal of those men. So what I'm saying is, you can refer to legislation and blockages and reasons why it can't be done. In this state, we can do anything we put our mind to. And the way to right the wrong, with all due respect, isn't for the Minister, Paul Keogh. It is for the President of our country, Michael D. Higgins, in Aras and Uachtaráin, to bestow that honour onto those men and onto the families of the deceased members. And whatever it is, it needs to take place in Aras and Uachtaráin by the President on behalf of all the Irish people, and the appropriate honour should be bestowed. In my opinion, that should be the Military Medal for Gallantry, the highest honour the state can be awarded. So I ask you to forget about what has happened and forget about legislative barriers, to make this happen, to work with your colleague, the Minister for Defence, Paul Keogh, to raise this with An Taoiseach, to make them aware of the growing anger out there, not just in the families of those men who carried it on their own for all those years, but in wider society, people like myself, the growing outrage and anger and the failure to give them the honour that they deserve. So I ask you to go back to the drawing board and to reflect on this, to understand the hurt and the pain, and the appropriate way to reverse that is take them to the highest place of honour in this land, to Aras and Uachtaráin, and to honour them appropriately. That's the way to do it.
Thank you. You make a very compelling case, Senator, and I'm sure the Minister will convey your heartfelt sentiments to Minister Keogh, but you can respond briefly.
Yeah. Again, I'd like to thank the Senator, as I said, for his passionate comments on this matter, and I'll certainly raise it with Minister Keogh. As I said in the speech there, the legal position under the Defence Force regulations is that no provision for the regulations for the Minister to make an award of a military medal for gallantry. Again, I'm sure you or other people will be able to check whether the legal position can be changed or how that is done. Certainly will bring your concerns to Minister Keogh, and perhaps this also would suggest that you write to President Michael D. Higgins with your views as well, and see if he can get involved. I too, only very recently, hadn't heard about the siege at Jadotville or the issues that had happened, and I haven't had an opportunity to see the film yet. But certainly, I've read some of the media, and I've seen the footage on television from the ceremony in Athlone in September. So I will speak to Minister Keogh. I will tell him and highlight to him the concerns that you have raised and the passionate way that you have asked for these changes to be enacted, and I'll certainly do that as soon as I see him.